Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of our Growth Accelerator series. For anyone who's joining us either live today or watching a recording in the future, I am Marina. I'm the head of marketing here at Incendium. And today we're very excited to have Ajit Ghuman with us. Ajit is the co-founder and CEO at Monetizely. And as you can see, he's going to be sharing some really great thoughts on pricing strategies. So thank you so much for coming on today, Ajit.
Thank you, Marina. Nice to be with you today.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, since you have some great thoughts, I'm gonna take a step back and let you take things from here.
Awesome. Thanks for everyone who's joined. This is the first time I'm doing a live stream. So if you're able to comment in the chat, please do while this is going on. Marina can help facilitate questions. I would love for this to be engaging. But yeah, excited. So the topic today is five steps to a winning product strategy. My name is Ajit Ghuman. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Monetizely. A little about me. So I am the CEO of Monetizely, which is a pricing consulting firm. Actually, just 2 days ago, we published the second edition of our book, Price to Scale. So if you go to Amazon and search Price to Scale book, you'll find this. I've been in SaaS for about 15 plus years, or I would say I've been in Silicon Valley for 15 plus years. I just moved to Vegas, actually. Some of the companies that I've worked with have been Medallia, Narvar, Twilio, and Monetizely was started a year and a half ago. I also run a popular course called The Art of SaaS Pricing and Monetization with my co-author of the book, Jan Pasternak. So if you're looking to learn more into pricing, there are a couple of resources right here. And with that, I will continue going. All right. So the agenda of today is that we're going to first discuss the impact of pricing done right. All of the discussions today is going to be held in the context of software and SaaS companies, but it really applies beyond software and SaaS as well. We're going to discuss a 5-step framework to think about pricing. This is the framework that we use with all of our consulting clients, as well as the framework we teach in the course. So you'll get a little bit of taste of this, and then we'll spend some time on Q&A at the end if there are any questions. All right. So pricing is a subject matter that many people have opinions on. If you are working at any company, pricing may yield a mental thought around price point, but pricing is a little bit more than just price point. Pricing is the structure by which your offers are being communicated into the market and through which alignment is happening with your buyer persona and the clients that you serve. So since it is a way of a structure of alignment, we very often see that a pricing exercise will actually increase not just revenue, but even reduce churn and increase net dollar retention rates. So this slide here is a study done by OpenView Partners, where they surveyed companies across a scale of ARR, so less than 1 million to even greater than 50 million in revenue. And they were able to survey these companies based on the impact of pricing changes that they made. And you'll see that the lowest impact was an increase of 12% in annual recurring revenue. This went up to as much as 47% impact. Not only was that mostly positive, but there was also a net dollar retention rate impact, which is pointing to the point I was making, that pricing is structural, right? And so today, in the 5-step framework that I take you through, that's what I want to leave you with, that pricing is a structural element and price point is actually one of the later considerations. There are other considerations you have before you even discuss price point. And if you get the structure right, then you can keep tweaking price point, but the structure will allow you for unlocking the growth in different segments. All right, so the 5-step framework that I want to take you through today is as follows. The first step in this 5-step framework is goals and segmentation. Any pricing project, any pricing revamp is always subject to what are the goals? Why are you doing this pricing revamp at this point? What are the goals for the company? So the goals for the project are always going to be inherited for what are the general go-to-market strategy, general go-to-market goals for the company, which phase of growth it is in, and I'll discuss a little bit more in detail, as well as what are the key segments that the company is targeting. Many companies target all the way from SMB, mid market to enterprise. Some companies only target enterprise customers. Some companies target different verticals, specific verticals, and within that, there are different segments. So, specifying the segment as well as the ideal customer profile within those segments is very helpful as you think about pricing, because what we're trying to do is you're creating pricing offers across the ICPs in this segment to target these segments well. Once we have clarified the goals and segmentations, then we can create a packaging structure that will serve the need for those segments. So packaging does not happen standalone. Nowadays, you'll see a lot of companies starting their business with three packages. Well, there isn't any reason why you would do three or not two, or why you would do three or not four. It really depends on how many segments you have and what your offers are. So packaging or tiers, packages or tiers are your offers to these segments to make sure that you can serve these segments and also capture the value that you're going to bring, monetize the value that you will bring to that segment. Number three is after you determine the offer, you then select the pricing metric. In the world of software, there are key pricing metrics such as the number of seats. Number of seats has been very prevalent for a long time, but nowadays there has been a more of a shift to usage-based pricing. And within the realm of usage-based pricing, there are many metrics you can choose as an alignment lever between the a customer and you. Does the customer want to pay based on a particular unit consumed? Is it data storage? Is it the number of views? Is it the number of monthly active users? It can be any element uh, that is being consumed by the customer that your product is delivering. And selecting the right metric creates for a great alignment mechanism between what works for you and what works for the client. And so you can see that having a good package and tier and a pricing metric will go a long way towards good alignment with the segment's needs. Then we come to a point around rate setting, or you can say it is the setting of the price point. Only once you have confidence in your packages and the metric of alignment will you then select the price point. And there are many ways to research the price point. There are many ways to approach the creation of a hypothesis and then do testing to confirm what the price point should be. The problem in pricing as a topic in B2B companies has been that pricing as a literature topic has been more arrived at through traditional sort of business school literature for B2C companies or FMCG companies. That's where a lot of the tools and practices come from, things like conjoint analysis, other survey research methodologies. And in FMCG companies, the market segments are just so broad that the packaging and pricing metric, while they are important, are much less important compared to the price point. Think about Netflix, for example. A company like Netflix case, it's really the price point that is much more important than any metric of alignment, because it's a one-to-one business to consumer relationship. And we'll discuss more about how that works. And finally, it's operationalization. Having made all of these determinations for pricing, can we actually operationalize this for our customer base? And operationalize is non-trivial. It's non-trivial, and there are a lot of systems work that goes into operationalization to make it happen. So we're going to cover all of this now. So on goals, I think one of my favorite books that I have read as part of my journey inside Silicon Valley and even before coming to the Valley was a book called Crossing the Chasm by Jeffrey Moore. It's really like a classic book for startup marketing. And I like to sort of juxtapose the goals of a company in context of the framework Jeff has created here. So in this book, the book talks about when a company is starting out, it starts to reach an early market. These are innovative customers. They take a bet on your business. And that's how your any product idea or service starts. Really, it's even not even a product, it's any idea starts. And at some point, before you have to reach the mass market, which tends to be folks that are more risk averse, you end up in a chasm. You're trying to build momentum. You're trying to enter sort of different segments. You're trying to become more of solidified player in the space. And afterwards, once you cross this chasm zone, you enter something called a tornado, which is where instead of you trying to reach the market gets convinced that they need your type of solution. What is an example of this? An example of this is CRM. Before CRM was a term, it was not obvious to people that they needed a CRM. But today, nearly every company by default will say, "Hey, I'm starting a company. I have a sales team. I need a CRM." It's sort of an obvious, completely obvious decision that was non-obvious at some point. So the category became an obvious decision. Once you become this thing becomes an obvious decision, then the leader in the category becomes the first choice, and the market starts to come to you. When the market comes to you, the goals of the company changes. And finally, as a company grows, evolves, and becomes, let's say, a post IPO company, there's going to be commoditization and competition. So when there is commoditization, there are going to be other players that enter the space. They may reduce the price points, they may innovate on something else. And that is the cycle of evolution, right? So, evolution of technology, of any product or service, happens in this cycle. If you think of the goals of a company across these stages, the goals are going to change. At some point, for a smaller company, the goal will be market share. How do we win most market share? How do we convince customers that we are not such a risky bet, right? Um, so pricing will be an outgrowth of that goal, the market share growth. Later on, once you have a substantial initial market share, you will want to have more cash in the business, and you will want to show profits as you more stably grow the business towards the tornado and mainstream phases, right? So at this point, the business will want to have more predictable revenue streams. They want to create a well structured business because they have this early majority customers, and they're now actively working to try to enter other markets. After this phase comes the sales efficiency phase, where if the market has started to come to you and you do not have to do convincing, the money that you can make is really just a function of how fast you can sell. So sales efficiency actually becomes more important rather than squeezing every last dollar from every last customer. And finally, in the commoditization phase, suddenly you have new competition who is trying to get your business. And then a lot of your work as a company is around how do we cover our flanks? How do we out innovate these new competitors? And if there is a process of destruction, well, is there a creative destruction we can do in which others don't cannibalize us, we cannibalize ourselves? So the goals for pricing strategy there changes. So the bigger point I want to make is that pricing strategy goals are always going to be uh, inherited from your company goals. But many times, a company at a given stage will not be able to articulate which phase of growth they are in and what are their current goals. It's very easily in the conversations you have in the company, the conversations that have been had with investors, you can infer this. But it's always very helpful to clearly understand which bucket you fall into, have people agree which bucket you fall into, such that the goals for pricing will be the same. What will not help is if some people think that the goals for the company is market share, while other people think that the goals for the company is to maximize margin. That is, that those goals don't mix together very well, and that happens very often. This confusion inside a company happens very often. So the first thing I would suggest is that we need to have clear goals that are agreed upon for everybody who is thinking of doing a pricing strategy project. So that is a comment on goals. Associated with goals, another comment I want to make is around segmentation. Segmentation also is often a moving target as a company is growing. You may start in one segment. You may start, let's say, in the enterprise segment for, maybe it's a horizontal product across industries, and later on you move mid market and down market to SMBs. Well, as the segmentation changes, the right pricing and product offer for the segments will have to change. What works for enterprise customer is not really what an SMB customer will need or will be able to use. It might be just too complex. So understanding who your segments are is very critical, and then maybe having a rough ICP or persona of what is an example customer within that segment is very helpful to now create offers for those segments. So I would say the clarity in goals and the clarity in segments and ICP is is the most important, and many times is the most overlooked in a pricing project, leading to spinning of the wheels. And then at some point people realize that we are just not in alignment. We thought we had the same goals, but we think we are in operating in completely different assumptions. So that was the first step. The second step is packaging. Before I go into the principles of packaging, I want to call this thing out. So many companies, when they start out, and even for a long time, will just start and say, I want to do pricing. uh, Let us look at what some competitors are doing, or maybe I look at what are doing or not doing, but I'm just going to create three plans slash packages on my website. This is traditionally called the good, better, best plan. I think it is the most unconscious decision one can make for pricing. If this was a live event, I would ask you why that is, but I will give you the answer now. The thing is that if you have one segment and you have three plans, if you have two customer segment and you have three plans, and you haven't really thought about how the plans are fitting the segment, what is going to happen? A customer, let's say in the enterprise segment, will look at your plans and say, well, I think the middle plan does the job for me. I don't really need the highest plan. So you may have priced the highest plan to cater to the willingness to pay that the enterprise segment had. So you're automatically shooting yourself in the foot because the enterprise customer is choosing a lower. Or perhaps the middle plan doesn't solve the need for an enterprise customer, and just for a few missing features they have to move to the highest paying plan, and perhaps it is too expensive. It really depends on what the issue is while we constructed the packages. And because the highest paying plan is too expensive, they will say, well, I want a discount on this now because I just needed a few things which your other plans could not support. And because I needed this few things, I'm not going to pay for the cost of the highest plan. So give me a huge discount, which you will very often do. And along with that, what will happen is there will be a lot of features within that plan that they will just not use, because that was not a plan they wanted anyway. And those features will become shelfware. Any feature that becomes shelfware is not going to be used. And since you have already sold it, you cannot upsell it as that company grows. So you have blocked your upsell motion, and you basically sold something that nobody, that person didn't want. So they're feeling like their expense could be cheaper if they only bought what they really needed to buy. This is a problem. Where did this problem happen? This problem happened because we did not start with package the segmentation and ICP before designing packaging, which is so common. The first thing many founders do is, or tell me this, that I just copied what my competitors were doing. I did not understand my segmentation, and this could really be even a big company. So there is no excuse to not start with your customers and then design offers that fit them. There is no excuse to not understand your own GTM motion and design offers that will fit with your GTM motion. Otherwise, things will be just not optimized correctly. And you may even experience churn because people will not be in the right offer, right? So this is a problem of alignment to the buyer's need, and through better alignment comes your ability to monetize. So within packaging, there is a spectrum of options one can choose. On the very left hand side here, there are type of companies like Netflix which have a one size fits all package. They have a large market that they have to serve. They don't really differentiate too much in this market. Perhaps they differentiate between families and individuals, but they're very, they're trying to cover the earth basically. So they'll have a simple packaging because it's a large market that they serve. On the very right hand side is the very end of the spectrum, where you will have complete a la carte packaging and a sales approach that takes time. It's a bespoke sales approach for enterprise clients, where a sales team will have a discussion of the needs of an enterprise client and then sell these bespoke features or capabilities to this client and try to maximize the value capture for these clients. So think about large financial institutions, banks, insurance companies. They have a lot of money to pay and they do need bespoke help. And maybe there's not more than, I guess, 20-30 retail banks anyway. So if that was your market, you wouldn't really put your pricing on the website either. You would want to try to maximize monetization from every single bank. So that is the spread of packaging options, and any company will be somewhere between the spread, somewhere between a monolithic packaging as well as a completely granular packaging. So therefore, the good, better, best option is somewhere in the middle, where you may have a bunch of market segments, you may have good, better, best packages with add-ons, but you really have to, with this spread, you really have to think about what is your best go to market model for the type of product that you're building and your customer segments. You may be on the left end of the spectrum or the right end of the spectrum, and customize it more. If you have more enterprise clients, you may use good, better, best as a starting point, but maybe your best plan is more granular than the other plans and you are doing more bespoke things. If you're more on the left end of the spectrum, perhaps you're more of a product led company and you're trying to reach a lot of you're trying to reach a lot of customers, or maybe there are developers, then you will have very simple plans, and you may not have three plans, you may just have two, or maybe you just have one. So the amount of flexibility in the plans will also be less because you will be trying to reach a huge market. So depending on what your market looks like will inform what your packaging will look like, and has inherently to do with your sales efficiency as well. A large market, you will want your sales efficiency to be high, so you want to sell faster. A small market, you are okay with selling slower to maximize the money you make from those accounts. So 5 principles just to keep in mind for packaging for something that I would say is higher priority to lower priority. First, as I just mentioned, are your packages well tailored to your market segments? Number two, do they allow for effective upside capture from high willingness to pay customers? What do I mean about this? Like the banks that I mentioned, the insurance companies, these sort of companies can pay you a lot. And a very common error in packaging is if you make this packaging not flexible enough, then you may actually leave money on the table. So you do want fit, but you also want to make money. So you want to make sure that you're able to capture the upside from the high willingness to pay customers. You want to make sure the packages are differentiated between each other. If they're not differentiated, people may down select plans. They may not choose the right offering. So there must be intra package differentiation. And if there is not, I would go back and then think, do I have a good understanding of my segments? Do these packages allow for upsell and cross sell? If you have going to have a lot of shelfware, you're going to block upsell and cross sell. You really need to think about the customer journey and how the customer will grow. If your plans are too fixed, what will then happen is that if a customer grows even a little bit, they have to move to the next plan that could be 2 to 3 times the cost of the previous plan, and they may not do that. So you want to allow for large moves as well as incremental growth for you to continuously capture value as the customer's needs are increasing. And then finally, new customers and existing customers are really different. By the time, let's say, a company is 10-20 million in revenue, all of the financial math with venture capitalists, all of the financial maths around exiting the company, all of the math around revenue growth, everything requires you to have a healthy growth from your existing customer base. And sometimes your existing customer base may outpace in a recessionary environment, it may outpace the growth from your new customers. Especially, you don't really have to run a sales process with existing customers. So if you may want to provide more flexibility in terms of pricing and packaging for existing customers, one, as a way of sort of rewarding loyalty, and two, in your own interest. If your packaging is more flexible for existing customers, the chances are higher that they stay with you and they grow with, right? So these are just some principles to consider as you create packages, and just some things to check and see where you stand compared to these principles. I'll give you one example from a company I used to work at, and I'll try to drive one of these points home. So there was a company I worked at where the sales motion was enterprise based. We definitely did not sell to too many SMB customers. It was more mid market and enterprise. But the place where the company was at in its investment life cycle was around around, hey, we need to scale and focus on sales efficiency as a goal. And sales efficiency, like the goal was not that well clarified with market share. So I would say two things they were trying to do was sales efficiency and capture market share. A new CRO had just come into the company, and without really understanding the current segmentation that well or the existing sales motion that well, the CRO hypothesized that what I need to have is more simple to sell packages that will increase my sales efficiency and I can reach a broader part of this market. That was their hypothesis, but that was not the segmentation of the company. The company did not have a product that was at that time a good fit for small and SMB firms, and enterprise customers also bought in a bespoke fashion. What they created is a product set like this where some of the core capabilities was chunked out. Like this product used to sell email notifications for different phase of in the consumer journey, and emails were sort of portioned out into, you only get 2 emails here, you get 1 email here. In the enterprise plan you get 4 emails and you can buy other. So flexibility was reduced, because if you bought two you could not buy three. If you bought two domains you could not buy three in mid market, and you would have to go to the enterprise plan to buy more. So this created a brittleness, and it was not a good fit with the buying motion for these segments. As a result, what happened is that customers would not be satisfied with, let's say, this mid-market segment, or not be satisfied with enterprise and move to the top-end plan, then get that one severely discounted. This reduced the average selling price across the board for the plans, and it led to high shelfware and reduced upsells. So that is a well-designed plan. You will have healthy ASPs for all of the tiers. You will have upsells, and you will not you will not have churn issues. You will not have high discount rates across the plan. So those are markers of something in packaging not work. And in this case, I mean, the sellers just refused to sell with some of the sellers refused to sell with the new packaging. That should have been a red flag, and it was a red flag which we changed. But this is an example of where packaging must be recognized as an alignment vehicle with you and your customers, because it is your offer to the customer, and it should not be thought through in a trivial fashion. It should not be just copied. You need to look at the markers. Otherwise, you could be running an unoptimized ship for a long time, not understanding why customers are churning, not understanding why your sales team is not happy. All right, so we discussed two important things. We discussed goals and segmentation, we discussed packaging, and now we discuss the third step here, which is the pricing metric. Now, pricing metric is the topic under which a lot of discussion nowadays happens around usage based pricing. If you see, there is a lot of new AI companies coming on board. They are using a lot more usage based pricing nowadays. They're offering more, even outcome based pricing. Outcome based pricing is a type of usage based pricing where you are actually not charging by the number of usage of the product, but outcomes that it delivers. So I would say that there is a spectrum of selection of a pricing metric as a key alignment variable between you and the customer. So the key pricing metric would be the dollar per unit that you charge, and the unit being the metric by which the customer is paying. If this metric is something that allows them to win, then you're in business. If it is a metric that does not, they do not feel allows them to win, then it is a harder sell. But regardless, this pricing metric lies on a spectrum. On one hand are older models which are more on premise fixed fee models. Earlier on, software would be sold on premise, and you would then maintain that software through maintenance service contracts. Then later on, it moved to more seat based models, which I would still say is the majority of all software licensing models out there today. It provides fair amount of revenue predictability, and it is proportional to the overall general growth of the customer base of your customer's business. Newer approaches to pricing has for newer approaches to pricing metric has been around Amazon S3, Amazon EC2, where you're using some cloud capability on rent. They necessarily needed to, they provided a usage based model for something that was a fixed fee based model. So that was an innovation. So naturally those innovations had to come with paying per hour of using that service or per minute of using that service or so on. Companies like OpenAI have also created foundational models that can be used. And so both AWS and OpenAI are in a sense a proxy of PG&E. They're providing the plumbing on which you can build different applications. And so by their very nature, they are more usage based. At the same time, AI products are very expensive, and that is also causing the pricing metric for these products to be more usage based, and I'll show you why. But these are the two ends of the spectrum that you have available to make a pricing metric decision that will align the success of your clients to your success and your ability to make. So there are 7 factors I'd like to cover around what should you consider before you finalize a pricing metric. The first 3 factors are more about what works for the customer, and the next 3 factors are more about what works for you, and the final factor is about what can you even implement the most ideal factor, and we'll talk about that as well. So the first 3 are around how risky does the customer think you are. If you are an early stage company, you may be perceived as much more risky, and people will be taking a bet on you. In which case, you may want to offer some sort of usage-based pricing such that people only pay for what they use, and therefore they don't overspend, right? Because then you're limiting their risk. That's one consideration. The other is mental anchors. Many industries, including the CRM industry or the contact center industry, are pretty set in their ways. They've been around for a long time. There have been tons of players in the space, and so prospects and customers are used to buying a certain way. If you come out with a new product in that category and you try to innovate the pricing metric, there's high likelihood that unless the innovation is significantly different, people will not accept a significantly different pricing model from the way that they already know how to buy, because the way budgeting is done is based on the current understanding of that market. A lot of things within a client company will work a certain way, and you cannot really change how they think if you're new to the business, right? This thing takes years to change. Markets take years to change, so you will have to adhere to what is being anchored. However, if it is a blue ocean environment, if it's completely brand new, then you have a lot of room to play and experiment, because there is no anchor in the customer's mind. There is no existing buying process, and they will be able to work with you on something new. Number 3, alignment with value, which is perhaps the most important thing in the first 3. Does your pricing metric allow for the success of the customer? When this metric increases, is it correlated with the success of the customer? Then they will find it much more easy to pay you. But if your pricing metric increases and they do not succeed, which happens many times actually, in which case they will be much more likely to churn. In my book, there is a mixed panel case study that talks about exactly this, where the pricing metric that they were using was an internal metric called events. However, your consumption of events may go up, and your business may not have had more revenue or been more successful. So that is something for you to be very mindful of. What is a metric which would be aligned to the success of a business? It could be monthly active users. How many end users does your customers have? So that would be an example metric that would work, that would be good for them. So and I'll give you some case studies and examples on these, but these are factors for you to consider. The next 3 factors are more about what works for you. And the ideal pricing metric is something that works for both you and the end customer, or you and your clients, basically. The first one is consumption pattern. So this is really more around what is the nature of your product? How are people using your product? An analogy I like to give is the difference between buying a car and using a taxi. People who buy cars love their cars, use their cars, retain their cars, but many people don't actually use their cars a lot, especially in the work from home era. They still will buy top dollar for their cars. Others will spend money on taxi, and the same people will spend money on both. Taxis gets used a lot whenever they are used. So if your product is more of a capability, it may not be used a lot, but it will be valued. If it's more of a utility, like OpenAI or an AWS, it's going to be, people are going to perceive its value when they use it only. They do not consider it a capability that is being bought, right? So you if your ideal metric is actually proportional to how it is being used. If you are not being used as a utility, then if you move your metric to a usage metric, it's not going to really work for you. So it really matters what is going to work for you in a given situation. Number 5 is cost. In this realm of infrastructure as a service, in the realm of AI products are so cost intensive in the development and the service of the product. If you're using OpenAI as an API service, the costs are going to be very high. Even after Moore's law and the reduction of these costs, the cost to serve these new applications is very high, very very high. And even if you build your own models, they are still high. They are not cheap by any means. So if your costs are going to continue to rise as you get more and more customers, then you may not have an option but to have a usage based model, because you want to maintain your margin. If you provide a user based model, some users may completely blow out the cost and overconsume so much that it will not work for you at all. That was not the case for application layer software. So you need to be careful around how your costs change as your business grows. Number 6 is competitive action. Sometimes you may just, you may not have that money. You may not be able to predict what's going to happen. A new player may come into your market, offer a more innovative product with a different metric, and that may have to, you may have to move because of that competitive action. So these are factors to all consider in the context of making a pricing metric decision. It's just not always just one factor that works. If you think that you're going to do something that's aligned with customers, but maybe consumption is aligned with customers, but your product does not really, it doesn't work for you to have this be consumption based, then that metric is not going to be useful to you. Conversely, if user-based pricing works for them, you may start to lose money if your cost patterns are too high. So you need to find a way to balance your needs with the customer's needs. And finally, the best metric is not the one that you should implement, because implementation requires a lot of engineering work, especially in the realm of usage-based pricing. You have to meter something, you have to send that to billing systems, you have to invoice customers, you have to make sure that the data is accurate, and that takes effort. Bigger company definitely takes much more effort than a smaller company, and could even be years of effort. So you have to be careful around something that is simple enough to be implemented, because the best things have a best strategy may be actually unimplementable, and in which case you're back to square one. I'll cover some of the some case studies from this. So a case study on mental anchors here. I used to work at the company on the right called HelpShift, but I was also aware of this company on the left, which was a customer service platform. Before I joined HelpShift, for a while, HelpShift was only a customer service SDK for B2C gaming apps. There were no anchors or mental anchors for customers in this field. As a result, Tushar, who was the head of sales for HelpShift at the time, he started selling this SDK to product managers, and he used the metric as 100,000 MAU as the key metric by which he would sell the software. The more MAU you have in that multiple, the more you would pay HelpShift for the customer service. Had HelpShift selected a traditional customer service metric, which was number of agents, they would have made much less money, maybe 10 to 100 times less money than they made with some of these customers selling on a MAU metric. So that really helped HelpShift. However, customer, which was also a customer service platform, but they sold to merchants and B2B retail retailers. They sold to retailers and merchants. Retailers and merchants were not product managers. They thought like how contact center people thought all across other industries, and they thought on a per agent basis. So they were never able to innovate or create a metric like HelpShift did, and as a result, every account was limited by the number of agents that was in a given company, number of agents that were in a given business. So think of a D2C business, which, let's say Allbirds. You have so many orders, but if you're constrained by the number of agents and the agents are not growing as fast as the company is growing, that limits the amount of money that they're going to pay the software. And they're also anchored by the number of agents, because that is how they think. So mental anchors matter a lot, and they constrain the growth of many software categories, because they're used to buying a certain way, and the CRM ecosystem is one such place. People try to make a product in the Salesforce ecosystem and they realize that they're not able to make money because the upside has become capped. Cost pattern. So just wanted to provide a visual. When it comes to application layer software, as more and more people come into the business, the value they get is increasing, you're getting more revenue, but your cost doesn't increase that much. The investments you make for hosting, web hosting, or creating the application actually tapers down and it doesn't increase. So you're able to have more user-based pricing metrics. You don't really have to have the metric be proportional to cost. But when it comes to infrastructure SaaS or AI products, as the business is growing, you're getting more revenue, but your costs are continuing to increase. They're not tapering down. In which case, you cannot, you're forced to almost have a usage-based metric that is going to help you, be margin positive from a cost standpoint. And there's not much you can do about that at that point. You just have to pick the best usage-based metric, but there is no user-based metric that would easily allow you to be, margin in the green with your profit with confidence. So it's important to understand what's going to happen with your business over time. Some examples of pricing metric selection. So generative AI companies that have this huge cost component, what they're doing is they're saying, hey, buy credits from us. And credits are bundles of usage, 1200 credits here, 3300 credits, 8400 credits. These are bundles of usage. The biggest bundle you buy of usage from us, you will get a little bit of discount, but they are selling bundles of usage to make the sale more predictable. They are not selling on a per seat basis. Usage automatically implies that they are taking care of their margin while being able to provide a product that look similar to existing SaaS products, but they are really usage-based products. They are not user-based products. All right. So those were some key considerations for pricing metric. Of course, we can go a lot deeper into this. If you want to read more, I recommend picking up our book or considering our course. But this is a highlight into all of the things that you would want to consider while making a pricing metric decision. The next decision, the fourth decision, is more around price point. A key thing to understand around price point is the concept of Veblen goods. So the idea of Veblen good is that there are products for which if the price increases, the demand reduces. They are more commodity products. Think of stuff sold by retailers, Shopify merchants, even regular SaaS software. If the price is going to increase, the demand will reduce. That's traditional demand curve. But there are luxury goods where when the price increases, the demand also increases, right? The luxury goods like Rolex. Now, that happens in software a lot. If you have the same software is generally sold to SMB customers and repackaged and sold to larger financial services companies, government and bank. If you're going to go to a government tender saying my product is $30 per month or $10 per user per month, you're not even going to be considered seriously. Same in like banking companies. They expect price points to be at a certain level to reflect a certain quality and a certain professional services infrastructure to support their needs. So while it is not necessarily a luxury good, the dynamics are very similar, that the price point signals your capability of delivering for their complex needs. And if the price point is too cheap, you may be automatically disqualified. This happens much more often than you may think. And it's also something that you can utilize from a positioning perspective and segmentation perspective. So I just want to make sure that you understand this. This has a lot of implications in how you package. This has a lot of implications on whether you put your pricing plans on the website, because the moment you put it on the website and you put your enterprise and mid-market plan side by side, if they look too much similar, the luxury customer may not be very enticed by that, or luxury or the complex need customer. They really think of themselves as distinct and separate, and you have to treat them that way. So this is a really important, it's a price point problem, but it goes back into the positioning and segmentation discussion we had earlier. How do you do price point determination? So I would say price point is now inheriting the decisions that you've made for packaging and pricing metric. You take that hypothesis, you would add on competitive comparisons to that hypothesis. You would have some customer and market feedback, and then you can test this. Now, we cannot go too much into the specifics of testing approaches, but common approaches are primary research. You can assemble 10 to 15 customers and get feedback on your hypothesis with them. On in our YouTube channel, we have explained a process by which you can take to do this. A traditional survey approach you can do is a Van Westendorp survey, where you ask above what price point is my service too expensive, below what price point is my service too cheap, where you will get a range. And you can do that for key features in your products, as well as for the packages themselves. Or you can do more robust conjoint analysis. So there are many testing approaches for the hypothesis, which will then give you confidence in your hypothesis, inclusive of packaging, pricing metric, as well as the price point. But that that set of packaging, pricing metric, and price point is going to be the thing that you test. All right, final step, operationalization. Again, so the best decision here, like the best hypothesis you create, may not be the most implementable, because your product or engineering teams will need to look at data storage, transformation, availability in a real-time system for any metric, be it a named user metric or a usage-based metric. That has to be sent to the billing system. Product SKUs have to be available, contracts have to be ready, and then accurate, timely invoices have to be sent. These are just some of the things that have to be ready for you to implement pricing, right? So pricing is actually an engineering problem. It's a hidden engineering problem. And the more complex pricing you create, if you have multiple pricing metrics, the more complex you make, the harder to implement it becomes. The harder it becomes for your sales team to understand it, sell it as well. So online sales companies do not have that much of a problem here, but B2B companies tend to have a lot of problems, because this is one, it's not in their DNA, and two, things can become very complex in a B2B environment very fast, because they will make very case by case decisions, and they will not simplify it in time, which will cause you technical debt on the operationalization step. So something to watch out for here. Two examples. So one example is a company. I just want to show you. Actually, this I had uploaded slides, so I'm not able to show you this study. I'll have to move forward from here, because it was a build slide in Google Slides. So pardon us for this one. But here, this is more of an example of what happens when sales efficiency becomes more important than monetization. This is from my colleague Jan and his experience. So at the time the pandemic started in 2020, Zoom had a lot of add-ons that it was selling, and it had a lot of different packages and tiers that it was selling. This was allowing it to monetize higher. But when it got the demand of sales efficiency, the goal changed. They wanted to sell faster and basically become the default standard for video conferencing in the whole world. So then they did a conjoint analysis, then they did a repackaging study, and they reduced the complexity so that sales efficiency increased. And it did increase, right? So the goal became how to acquire more customers. So this is one example of what happens when somebody moves from sort of the revenue predictability section to the sales efficiency section in the goals phase. A different thing will happen if you move from a new company phase to the revenue predictability section, where you may actually move from simplicity to complexity to capture more value. So in pricing across the four goal stages I mentioned, you will have this dynamic of starting with simplicity, moving to complexity, then moving to simplicity, then moving to complexity, based on the needs and goals, right? And no one answer is the right answer. The answer will always depend on the goals of your business at any given time. So top takeaway, understand the journey and stage of your company. Start with your customer segmentation and ICP, and realize that price point is really the last step of the journey. It's really the pricing structure that enables you for success. And that's it from my side. I'm happy to take any Q&A. Some resources for you are here. You can use this link to book a free consultation time with me. And this is the link to our latest book, the second edition of our book, Price to Scale.
Well, perfect. Thank you so much, Ajit, for coming on today. Really happy to have you share your insights here. For anyone who might be watching in the future and has any questions, how would you encourage them to get those answered? Maybe follow you on LinkedIn or reach out to you?
Yeah, you can reach out, connect with me on LinkedIn, add a note for your question, or you can just use my Calendly link if you have a complex problem and you want to chat over a call.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you again so much for coming on today. We'll wrap things up now, but like Ajit said, you can always get in touch with him if you're watching this in the future. We are here every Thursday with the Growth Accelerator, so we'll be back again next week. We always bring on different industry leaders and experts on any topics related to B2B growth. And if you have any preferred speakers or topics, always get in touch with our team. We're more than happy to kind of curate things to answer the questions, the growth challenges that you might be facing. So thank you again, Ajit, for coming on, and we'll see you guys again next week.
Thank you. Cheers.